I have updated my playlists to help you find what you're looking for, anything from controversial topics that are relevant to Christian geeks, interviews with creators like author Brent Weeks and The Chosen's Dallas Jenkins, growing in faith as a geek, tabletop gaming, comic books, video games, movies, and TV shows, or you can just get to know me a little bit better. There is a playlist for you with more content being added to them all the time, so I hope you'll take a look and enjoy what you find. Thanks. Well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about Netflix's Things Heard and Seen? Stick around and find out. Wah, 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 wah. I actually wanted to come up with a better theme that would fit this movie better than that, but I didn't have time. I gotta run and pick up my son real soon here, so this will be a little bit of a quick one. Hi, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. This is my uncut review of Things Heard and Seen. The synopsis from IMDb I am not going to read. I'm going to give you a modified one because the one on IMDb I think has you focusing in a direction that you shouldn't focus in if you want the movie to surprise you and take some unexpected turns like it did for me. I watched the trailer. That was good enough for me. I think that they direct you too much toward where the movie is going if you read the synopsis on IMDb. So my synopsis that I'll give you is this. An artist relocates to the Hudson Valley, that's from IMDb, and begins to suspect a supernatural darkness in her home amidst increasing turmoil in her marriage. And I'll just leave it at that. This I would describe as a supernatural suspense drama. It doesn't really need the supernatural elements, though, to tell its story. The meat of this story and the drama of it is about human relational issues and the dysfunctional, deteriorating marriage of the two lead characters. The supernatural suspense elements of the movie is more about the unknown than it is like this evil demon that's picking people off one by one or making people go insane and stuff. It's more like creepy stuff is going on. It really seems to have this darkness to it, and that is understandably creeping at the family. But they don't understand for much of the movie why the creepy things in the house are happening. Supernatural elements are also are a less frequent source of tension than the marital stress and other natural sources of drama and suspense that come later in the movie. I found this movie really intense and kind of hard to watch, not for the scary elements, but for the sad state of these characters' marriage and the choices both of them make that make things progressively worse in their relationship and in their marriage, and that further reveal how it's been bad actually for a good while before the events of the movie begin. Despite not getting the full-on supernatural movie that I kind of expected, I did enjoy how this movie kept me guessing. You know, I assumed several times that I knew where the story was generally going or kind of what would happen next, and it repeatedly surprised me. It's like, oh, we're going in this direction. Oh, interesting. You know, so again, it helped that I did not read the summary on IMDb before then. So wherever you see a text summary for this, I would recommend not reading it, because whoever did the PR work for the movie on that front and was putting synopses or summaries out there, I think is telling you more than they should have. As far as the cast goes, I thought these were solid performances. You know, especially I was engaged with James Norton, who plays the husband. His character flaws, his dysfunction really made me cringe more and more as I watched him in this movie, and it was interestingly contrasted with his otherwise friendly and charismatic demeanor. So I think that in his performance, he created a character that was interesting for me to watch from beginning to end. As far as the stunts and visuals go, you know, the effects are okay. It's like I said, it doesn't lean on the supernatural elements. There is a sequence with a CG tablecloth flying around that kind of stood out as looking fake to me. Again, I do have eyes that are cursed to pick out CG seemingly, so you can take that with a grain of salt if you wish. But you can take my entire review with a grain of salt. But other effects that simulate supernatural things rather than real objects did work better for me. The effects, like I said, are also brief, they're subtle, they're not leaned on, so I don't really have any significant complaints about the visual effects. And the movie was shot in a in a style that was, reasonably stylistic, and it didn't look cheap. So I'm pretty happy with the visual presentation, the visual storytelling here. As far as themes, is there anything of moral, philosophical, or spiritual significance going on the themes of this thing that might stimulate some worthwhile thought or conversation? I think so. Unlike many haunted house stories that caution viewers not to tamper with supernatural beings, supernatural forces, this movie ultimately affirms seances. Despite Christian religion being a part of the backdrop here, God is left out of the picture, and characters instead seek help from dead human spirits, which is something that the story ultimately validates. There's one thing about supernatural horror, as much as many Christians might have concerns about Christians interacting and enjoying and engaging with supernatural horror, is that very often it does caution us against some things that we should be cautioned against. Tampering with evil forces. It reminds us of the very real fact of evil in the world. And oftentimes, morality in the characters will really come to the surface in a way that it doesn't in other movies, and making it clear that this is an immoral action, this is a virtuous action and stuff. And so in horror movies and horror stories are often very good for that, and actually philosophically can line up in some significant ways with Christian teaching. But that was not the case with this movie. This movie really validates sort of I don't know if the expression would be New Age or, occults, honestly, kind of like the socially acceptable occult practices of modern America are affirmed in this movie. But even more memorable to me, thematically, are the dysfunctional elements of the main character's marriage. As I said, it was hard to watch. It was intense to watch. It was sad to watch. Rather than selflessly loving each other, and really, trying to base their marriage on biblical principles of listen, this is not about tit for tat, and I get what I want if you get what you want, and exchanging favors and stuff and exchanging love for each other. No, we're meant to, regardless of how our spouse is treating us, love them in every way we can, be self-sacrificing in every way we can. Now, that doesn't mean that we put up with abuse. That's not. I'm not entering into that territory at all. I'm just saying, in a typical marriage, it's very easy for us to kind of mentally in our minds say, well, they haven't been doing A, B, and C for me, so I'm not motivated, and I don't feel like I should have to do A, B, and C for them this week. And that is just a destructive path that leads, at the very least, to a cold disconnect in our marriages, and ultimately can lead to much worse things. And so they seem to do things for each other in this movie, or neglect to do good things for each other in this movie, based on what they are receiving from their spouse, or what they felt they were owed, or what they owed the other person. They also failed to set healthy physical and social boundaries in their relationships outside of marriage, with mutual friends that they have, or people that they meet in this town they're moving into. When the husband is alone with a woman that's roughly his age, maybe a little younger, maybe a little older, or vice versa, when the wife is alone with someone that's, maybe within 5 to 10 years of her age, who's attractive and stuff. They are interacting with them in ways that are just not healthy, and that encourage flirtation and stuff, and that do end up leading to some places that are ultimately destructive to their marriage, and to their ability to really connect with each other and lean into their relationship with each other. So just watching the choices they make sabotage their marriage, I think, is worthwhile in what it cautions us against. Although the movie does fail to caution us against occult practices, it serves as a cautionary tale of the other kinds of choices that we can make that can and will destroy marriages. And as a side note, it wins bonus points with me by having an obviously evil person listening to obviously evil counsel that essentially amounts to do what feels good. And that whole do what feels good, follow your heart, do what feels right, all that kind of stuff, that's a mantra that's been floating around for Hollywood for a long time. I've heard it less frequently in the last maybe 5 years or so, but it's still a mantra and a basic philosophy that needs to be called out as dangerous and destructive. And so I appreciate them in a very brief, subtle way doing that in this movie. All right, so let's see here. I have no idea what your tastes are on movies, but if I were a time traveler, I'd go back in time and say, Peter, This one's okay to skip. I mean, you're not going to be missing out by not watching it. It's an engaging experience, and it has some really enjoyable elements in it in terms of its direction, in terms of its drama, in terms of its acting and the writing and stuff. But some of the ideas, the values that the movie affirms, are going to rub you the wrong way and take you out of the experience as a result. And it also doesn't lean into its supernatural elements enough to really properly scratch your itch for a supernatural horror or a supernatural suspense movie. All right, this one is rated TVMA for suicide, language, and smoking. Those are my thoughts. Would love to get yours in the comments below. Please like, share, subscribe, and click that bell to stay connected. I want to thank the Spirit Blade Insiders for making this review possible. For info about the benefits of joining, go to patreon.com/Spirit Blade Productions. Would really appreciate your support in all that I'm doing right now. And then I hope you'll join us soon over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. For more chat about geek entertainment, answers to your questions, and news from the wider world of Christian geekery, get the Christian Geek Central podcast today on iTunes and other podcast services.